Today I'm going to be showing you all of the Moira Chroma light shadows that have just launched. It's 24 shades total, and I also have all of the Moondust shadows from Urban Decay, including these palettes, which I do have dedicated videos on each of the Moondust palettes. So I'm going to first show you detailed swatches, each of the 24 shades first, and then we'll get into some comparisons. And I was sent all the shades from Moira to do paid content for my reels, not this video. This video is not sponsored. I thought this video would be very, very helpful for people to see because each of these shades are only $6. Meanwhile, the Moondust shadows are, I believe they're $22 or something like that, which I've always felt like was a lot. Now you are getting 0.5 ounces or 1.4 grams with the Moira shadows, and then the Moondust shades are 1.8 grams or 0.06 ounces, so there's just a little bit more in these. And also these do have really nice plastic component, and here's what the Moira component looks like. So you can see it is a little bit smaller. While it's still plastic, the back is white, kind of like a little bit of a, it's got a little bit of a sheen to it, like a pearlescent white. Here's the packaging in comparison, as well as the pan size. I think you can tell that this is definitely smaller, but because these are just a little bit smaller, they might be easier to store. I'm going to be starting out with the lightest shade and ending with the darkest. Just swatching wise, it's going to be easier to kind of go from light to dark. So first up is number 17, Opal Gazed, and this is just a really beautiful iridescent green flashing duochrome. So very light, almost no base to it. Very, very smooth and very shiny. It's almost completely gone. When I tilt my hand, you see it's almost disappearing. It is so beautiful. Just a beautiful light wash. You could definitely use this as a highlighter as well if you wanted something this flashy on the cheeks, of course. But this is a beautiful topper-like shade. Next up is shade 1, Fairy Dust. And this shade is very light beige, essentially. They both feel the same, very sparkly. And this one is a little bit more icy, I think. And this one doesn't have like a duochrome. And it looks super sparkly. Oh my goodness, it is so beautiful. It's got a little bit of the sheen going on. Shade 19, Keepsake. This is a duochrome. I've definitely seen this kind of shade before many times. It's almost like a greenish yellow with a brown base, but we'll have to see in the swatch. Okay, it doesn't really have too much of that brown base. I can kind of see it when I tilt the eyeshadow, but I feel like it's not as obvious. These do feel less dry to the touch than the Moondust shades, just from the 3 that I have felt so far, but they don't feel like squishy or creamy. They just have a really beautiful silky texture to them. Look at that. This is such a wet look shadow. So metallic, so smooth. This one's going to be a great one and done, out the door kind of shade for sure. And I feel like there's quite a few of the shades like that in here as well. And in this one, I do see a little bit of the almost orangey brownish base to it with a very yellow flash. It's almost a little bit greenish. Shade 10, Aquamarine. Beautiful topper-like aquamarine shade. Again, feels exactly the same as the others. And it is just so silky smooth. It does have a little bit of powderiness if you like really swatch it like I just did. And this is what it looks like. Very beautiful. I think this one you could probably layer a little bit more on to get it to be a little bit more opaque, but it is pretty sheer kind of shadow. Look at that. So beautiful. Almost no base. Again, on the angle, it just kind of disappears. Shade 20 is a Lilac Love. So this is essentially the previous shade, but purple. And I see a little bit of a purple, but also kind of like an indigo. So beautiful. This one is for sure more like a duochrome. I feel like this one, none of the other ones, but this one feels like it's hard panning a little bit as I'm really rubbing my finger in there. And you could use these over a tacky primer and just get a little bit more of a punch. But these are so beautiful. So far, these are all so stunning. So this one has a beautiful purpley blue duochrome shift to it. Shade 9, Blossom Skies. This one looks like a much more vibrant blue. And it is a bit more opaque for sure, even just applying it. I am obviously blending it out, so if I add another layer to it, you can see it's a bit more opaque as I layer it on. Super sparkly, very smooth. These are very, very promising. Shade 3, Kiss and Tell. This is a mauve tone, a little bit on the darker side. Oh, that is so pretty. It does look a little bit more baby pink, like a really cool tone, rosy pink. Here it is just swatched this way. And then if I blend it out a little bit, can be sheared out. Another great one for one and done. I do see that base to it when I tilt my hand all the way? It's a very taupey base with lots of pinky sparkles on top. Shade 2, Tempting. I feel like this one is pretty similar to 12 Rosé. I'm not really to Sugar Crush, but they are a little bit similar, so I'm curious to see them swatched out. This one looks like a rose gold. So beautiful. Again, one and done kind of shade. Just swatch this way. Okay, it's got for sure a bit more peachiness that I see now, and there's tons of little flecks throughout it. I see silver, but also pink. Oh, this one is stunning. Oh, it's so beautiful. I do think these are going to become Moira's bestsellers because these are just so far knocking it out of the park for the price. Are you kidding me? Shade 12 Rosé. So this one also looks very pinky. I see almost blue flecks throughout it. It's very interesting. Also got a peachy tone to it. I feel like this one is very similar to the previous shade. Probably would say you don't need both. So first let me show you this one. I do see, like I said, blue sparkles with pink and a warm brown base. So let me swatch that one next to Tempting, because I feel like you could probably just pick one or the other. So this one is definitely more opaque and it has less different colored sparkles throughout it. So they are a little bit different. Shade 5, Sugar Crush. And this is a brown, like a true brown. I would say it's a little bit on the warmer side. Oh, that is so stunning. Oh, that's so beautiful. Okay, I'm going to blend it out a little bit, but you can definitely see that brown base to it. It's a really nice, almost like a caramel brown base with kind of silvery flecks on top. It is so shiny. Another wet look shadow. I feel like most of these will give you a wet look on the lids. 11 Golden Topaz, and this is golden. And I see a little bit of a green to it too. It looks like a duochrome. Super pretty. Also looks like it has a brown base to it. Oh, for sure. It's a little bit more of a reddish brown. This one is also really stunning. This one also a great one and done shade. I think it's a little similar to Keepsake, so let me just swatch that one next to it because I'm curious to see how they compare. Oh, these are almost the same. This one I think is a little bit more yellow and the base is just a little bit lighter. But these are very similar. Definitely would say pick one. 14 Birthday Girl. This one is another pink. Oh, that one is so pretty. And I see almost like a yellow base to it. It looks a little yellow with beautiful flashes of pink. So again, when I tilt my hand, you can kind of see the sparkle will disappear and you see the base color. Let's compare this one to Tempting. Definitely a bit different. And then also a rosé, because it's also pink. Okay, so it's pretty different. More of a lighter base, essentially. Shade 16, Born to Be. Beautiful bronze shade. Super smooth, just like the other shades. Oh, look at that. So stunning. I do think if I layer it, you can get it to be even more opaque. But this one is for sure a bit more on the opaque side in general. I feel like this one out of all of them is the least kind of exciting in terms of there's no like extra sparkly colors in there. Great everyday one and done shade. Shade 13, Renegade. Beautiful duochrome. Again, I feel like from swatching it, it feels like it's almost kind of hard panning just a little bit. I'm definitely going to try to apply it with a brush as well. This is a stunning duochrome. I've for sure seen these kinds of shades before, but it has a very reddish tone base to it with a purple flash. Lots of purpley sparkles throughout as well. Shade 4, Summer Dream. Now this one definitely looks very familiar. It looks very similar to the Urban Decay Moondust shade. I forget which one off the top of my head. But this is a stunning kind of green, reddish brown base. Duochrome. This has come out so many different ways from so many different brands at this point. and it is just such a stunning shade. It's a really nice shade to have because it is great for every day, but it does add a little bit of spice to a look for sure because it is so duochromatic. So this one is so beautiful. It actually looks a little bit less green. From my angle, I see a little bit more of like a blue. So it's like a blue-brown pigment essentially. 22 Full Moon. Beautiful, beautiful. Very cool toned purple. It's almost a little bit silvery. And I also see purple pink sparkles throughout it. It just has a lot of dimension in it. 6 Honey Glow. I mean, look at that. So, so beautiful. This shade looks, oh yeah, it's so pigmented and it's so, so shiny, metallic, very smooth. It literally looks like the sun or like a sunset, but in shimmer form. So beautiful. It has a brown base to it with a really, really beautiful orangey yellow flash. 18 How Charming. This is a cooler toned brown. They really got all the spectrum of the shades covered. Oh, this one is definitely a chocolatey brown with a flash of a lighter beige sparkles. So stunning, very pigmented. The shade is so sparkly, really, really glistens. Shade 8, Sunstone. And this one is a warm toned shimmer, warm toned brown rather. It has gold flecks throughout it. So beautiful. I feel like these two last shades felt a little bit more creamy than the others. Shade 15, Unbothered. Stunning green. I've also definitely seen a shade like this before. It kind of looks similar to these other two shades. Definitely just swatch it. It is a little bit more warmer, orangier than the other two shades I'm thinking of. Golden Topaz. A little bit similar for sure. And then Keepsake. So this one is definitely quite a bit different from them, but kind of a little bit same theme essentially, but it is a bit darker. 21 Good Fortune. I feel like this one doesn't look as shiny in the pan as the other shades, and it feels a little bit creamier. Look at that. Oh my god. Yeah, this one definitely feels a little bit thicker to the touch, but look at that sparkle. I am a little bit surprised for sure. It is so sparkly. Oh, that is so, so stunning. Beautiful jeweled green with a little bit of aqua sparkles in it. Shade 7, Spellbound. This one is a magenta. Also doesn't look as shimmery, I think, that in the pan, but very, very beautiful. It doesn't feel creamy. Feels like the regular formula of these. Beautiful. 23 Midnight Blue. Truly Midnight Blue. This one feels a little bit drier and it's actually pretty sparkly. I almost feel like by rubbing it you just kind of like activate the sparkles or like bring them out almost. Very beautiful navy blue, lots of sparkles, really beautiful shade. So, so sparkly. And the last shade 24, You Up. This is basically gunmetal kind of shade, very dark. I don't think it's truly black. It definitely is a little bit more charcoaly with silvery flecks throughout it. So stunning. Super, super sparkly. So onto the comparison portion. I did kind of split these up. There's only really a couple of shades that I feel like are almost identical, but it's not like a lot. But I did pull also any shades that I thought might be similar. Starting off with Cosmic Cowgirl from the palette. This one is very sheer. It's literally just a bunch of kind of sparkles. And then next to Star Cowgirl from the other palette. This one has a little bit more of a beige tone to it, just slightly. In comparison to the Cosmic Single, these sparkles are very, very fine. And they're almost kind of sitting on top of my skin. I feel like the shade from the palette definitely has a little bit more oomph to it. And then Fairy Dust from Moira. Definitely a little bit more on the beige side. So I feel like similar effect. I don't think they're by any means like completely the same. If you really like want to get nitpicky, they're not. Like the texture's for sure different. However, I think the effect is almost the same. And you'll probably get less fallout with these. I get a lot of fallout from the shades, especially from the palettes, because the sparkles are just really sitting on top of whatever the base of the eyeshadow is. Moving on to Cowgirl Warrior from the Silvery palette. For some reason, I just cannot remember the names between all the different palettes. So that one's going to be right here. And then the single shade Rebel Star. I'm going to put that next to it. Ooh, this one's very different. This one's like a different kind of metallic. Again, the sparkles are just really sitting on top there. And then next to Rosé from Moira. So obviously a little bit different, but quite similar. I see a couple of different flecks in the Moira shade. And then lastly, I'm just going to throw in Kiss and Tell. I kind of thought they might be similar, but no, they're not. But oh well. So here are the comparisons here. Next up, Solstice. Solstice Moondust. This one is a very, very popular Moondust shade for sure. Next to Summer Dream from Moira. They do feel a little bit different. As I mentioned, the Moondust shades do feel a little bit on the drier side. But here they are next to each other. They're pretty on par. Very, very similar. I think they're just a slight difference in the base. In the opacity, I think it's a little bit heavier on the Moira shade. We could probably blend it out, share it out. But again, the sparkles are really kind of sitting a little bit on top versus more blended in with the pigment. Cowgirl Rider from, I think this one is the Space Cowgirl palette. I feel like this one's not like the sparkliest from all the Moondust shades. And then a Sunstone from Moira. I was going to include this one in here, but I feel like it's pretty different. This is Honey Glow. Yeah, it's quite different. But again, very much similar kind of vibe for only $6. Next up, I'll swatch Space Cowboy from the palette. This is a very, very popular, famous Almost shade from Decay. This is Space Cowboy in the single eyeshadow version. It definitely is different. I'm also including Wild Dipper from the Moondust shades. And then Sugar Crush from Moira. Definitely not as sheer, and the sparkles are not as sparkly. Next up, Wild Dipper Rides Again from the palette. Cosmic Craze, the single. Tempting from Moira. Very, very similar. I think that the Urban Decay shades do just have a bit more glisten to them. There's just something about the way that the pigment is that does make them a bit more distinct from the Moira shades. But I think for $6, you can't go wrong. Except this Cosmic Space Dust from the palette. Lithium Single from Urban Decay. Definitely way more sparkly. How Charming from Moira. So it's got a much darker base to it and not as much sparkle. There's just something about, this is such a fine, really just glistening sparkle to it. It's just so distinct for Urban Decay. Meanwhile, this one, it has a couple of those same sparkles throughout it, but it's really more sheen-like and metallic than like sparkly. You can just really see it right here. It becomes very obvious just how sparkly the Urban Decay Lithium shade is. And then lastly, I have these two shades. This one is Glitter Rock from Urban Decay. This one has like no base to it. Extremely, extremely sheer. Compared to Kiss and Tell. Pretty similar for sure, but again, that sparkle is just different. So overall, I'm so happy to see these come out from Moira. I feel like these are a great option, especially for the price, and they're just really, really stunning. I'm really amazed at actually what the price is, because I would easily pay at least double that for these, for sure. Now, the Moondust shadows are not completely the same. I don't think they're like direct dupes, especially in terms of shades. I do think that only really two shades being very similar, specifically Solstice for sure. However, the Moondust shades do have just a different kind of glistening sparkle to them. They are just a bit different, but the price tag is just so high. I would definitely recommend checking out the Moira shades. They also have a better variety, and they have some more kind of less topper-like shades, some a little bit more opaque shades like the green and the blue, the different tones of brown. I think that Moira has just a larger variety, so you can basically get like 4 shades for the price of one of the Moondust shades. So it's really totally up to you seeing these next to each other. If you feel like they're comparable, I pay attention a lot to texture, and texture does very much play a huge role in how I view an eyeshadow and if I like it or not. And so I really will notice the really small nuances between the shades. So I don't think that they're dupes by any means, because they are just not the same aesthetic. They are way more sparkly than these. It probably has to do with the pigment. So let me know in the comments below which of the Moira shades are your favorite. Do you plan on picking any of them up? And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time.